Caspian Wellwood parked his pickup truck in the driveway of his Portland, Oregon, home and glanced at his watch. It was 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. He had returned from Seattle a day earlier than planned. The trip had gone smoothly. The green housing project he was pitching had gotten the green light from investors. Caspian had hoped to surprise Vivette, his wife, with his early return. He turned off the engine, grabbed his bag from the back seat, and headed for the front door. The house was quiet, except for the light in the living room. Caspian set his bag by the door and took off his shoes to be quiet. He walked through the living room, noticing a glass of wine on the coffee table. Vivette was probably relaxing after work, he thought. She often left little things like that, and it didn't bother him. He had grown accustomed to her little habits over 20 years of marriage. Caspian headed for the stairs that led to the second floor, where their bedroom was. Halfway up, he stopped. There were sounds coming from the bedroom, muffled voices and laughter. His heart began to beat faster. Vivette must be alone. He paused, listening. A female voice, definitely Vivette's, said something unintelligible, and a male voice answered with a low laugh. Caspian frowned. Was she watching television? But the sound was too lively, not like it was coming from speakers. He walked slowly up the stairs, careful not to break the floorboards. The bedroom door was ajar, and light from inside spilled into the hallway. Caspian came closer, his hand hovering over the doorknob. The voices grew clearer. "Quinn, are you serious?" Vivette said, her voice playful. "You expect me to believe you came up with that ad campaign yourself?" "Of course, Vive," said the man, whom Caspian recognized immediately. Quinn Drake, the sales director at the marketing company where Vivette worked. "I'm a genius, you said so yourself." Caspian felt the blood rush to his head. Quinn? Here? In their bedroom? He pushed the door open with a slight creak. The scene before him froze him. Vivette was sitting on the bed, wearing the silk robe Caspian had given her for their anniversary. Quinn stood next to him, his shirt unbuttoned, holding a glass of wine. There was a bottle on the nightstand, and their clothes were strewn across the floor. Vivette turned to the door and screamed when she saw Caspian. Her eyes widened, and she pressed her hand to her chest. "Cause," she breathed. What are you doing here?" Quinn turned around, his face pale. He set his glass down on the nightstand and raised his hands in surrender. "Caspian, wait," he began. "It's not what you think." Caspian stood in the doorway, his fists clenched. He looked at Vivette, trying to find something in her face that would explain this. But she only looked at him, her lips trembling. "Not what I think," Caspian said, his voice low and tight. "Are you serious, Quinn? You're in my bedroom, with my wife, and this isn't what I think." "Cause, please," Vivette said, rising from the bed. She tightened the belt of her robe, her movements hurried. "Let's talk. This is just a mistake." "A mistake?" Caspian stepped forward, his gaze moving to Quinn. "You call this a mistake? How many times has this happened, Vive? How many times have you brought him here?" "No, Cause," Vivette said, her voice breaking. "This is the first time, I swear. It doesn't mean anything. Please listen to me." Quinn took a step back, his hands still raised. "Look, Caspian," he said, we were working late, and we had a few drinks, and, well, you know how it is." "I know how it is." Caspian turned to him, his eyes narrowing. "You're telling me this now, in my house, on my bed?" "Cause, calm down," Vivette said, coming closer. She extended her hand, but Caspian stepped back, not allowing her to touch him. "Please, let's talk. Don't do anything stupid." "Stupid?" Caspian almost shouted. "Do you think I'm stupid, Vive? Do you think I can't see what's going on? How long have you been lying to me?" "I didn't lie," Vivette said, her eyes filling with tears. "Cause, I love you. It was just, I don't know how it happened. Please believe me." Quinn coughed, trying to intervene. "Caspian, let's all calm down," he said. "No one meant to hurt you. We just—" "Shut up," Caspian snapped. His voice was cold, but inside he felt everything boiling. You have no right to speak. You shouldn't even be here. Okay, Quinn said, backing away even further. I'll go. Let's not make an issue of it. A problem? Caspian took a step toward him, his fists shaking. You're sleeping with my wife, and that's just a problem? Cause, don't, Vivette shouted, stepping between them. She grabbed Caspian's hand, but he pulled it away. Please don't do this. It's my fault, not his. Your fault? Caspian looked at her, his voice shaking. Do you think that absolves him of responsibility? He knew you were married, Vive. He knew who I was. Caspian, I didn't mean to, Quinn began, but Caspian didn't let him finish. Don't you dare say you didn't want to, he said, pointing his finger at him. You came into my house. You slept with my wife. What did you expect? Cause, please, Vivette said, her voice shaking. Let's just talk. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't do anything you'll regret. Caspian looked at her, his chest heaving. He wanted to believe her, wanted this to be a misunderstanding. But the clothes on the floor, the wine, their laughter, it all lingered before his eyes. He turned to Quinn, who was trying to pick up his shirt from the floor. Get out, Caspian said, his voice low and menacing. Right now. I'm leaving, Quinn said, raising his hands. No problem, I'm leaving now. No, said Caspian, stepping towards him. You won't leave so easily. Cause, don't, Vivette shouted, but it was too late. Caspian, what are you doing? She shouted, landing next to Quinn. Are you crazy? Caspian stood there, breathing hard, his fist still clenched. He looked at Vivette, who was supporting Quinn, and felt something inside him break. She had chosen him, he thought. Even now, she cared for him. Are you serious? Caspian said, his voice full of pain. You're protecting him? After all this? I'm not defending him, Vivette said, her eyes full of tears. Cause, please just stop. We need to talk. Talk. Caspian retreated to the door. What is there to talk about, Vive? I've seen enough. Cause, wait, Vivette shouted, standing up. Don't go, please. We can fix this. Caspian shook his head, his eyes were wet, but he did not let the tears fall. Fix it, he said quietly. You ruined everything, Vive. Everything. He turned and walked out of the bedroom without looking back. Vivette shouted at him, after him, but her voice grew quieter as he walked down the stairs. He grabbed the keys to the truck, leaving his bag by the door, and ran outside. The cold night air hit his face, but he barely noticed. Caspian got into the car, started the engine, and pulled out of the driveway, not knowing where he was going. His hands shook on the wheel, and his chest throbbed with pain. All he knew was that he couldn't stay in this house another second longer. Caspian pulled onto the road to the coast. His phone vibrated in the passenger seat. He glanced at the screen Vivette. Her name appeared, and a call was made. He gritted his teeth and hung up without stopping. The phone rang again, and again it was her. Caspian turned off the sound and threw the phone in the glove compartment. He didn't want to hear her voice, her excuses. Not now. Maybe never. Half an hour later, he parked at the dock. The dark water glittered under the lights, and the yachts rocked on the waves. Caspian got out of the car, the cold sea air hitting his face. He took the keys to the yacht club from his pocket and headed for the gate. The guard sitting in the booth nodded at him. Mr. Wellwood, it's late today, the guard said, his voice sleepy. Planning on going out to sea? Yeah, something like that, Caspian replied without stopping. Just checking the boat. Okay, it's a quiet night, said the guard. If anything happens, I'm here. Caspian walked along the wooden walkway to his place. Lunar Tide, a 35-foot white-hulled yacht, sat on the water. He had bought it 5 years ago when his firm with Bracken won a big contract. It had been a place where he spent weekends when he wanted quiet. Now he needed it to get away from it all. He climbed aboard, throwing his pack on the deck. The cabin smelled of wood and salt. Caspian switched on the lights and began checking the equipment. His hands moved automatically. checking the fuel tanks, the batteries, the navigation system. He knew he had to do something, but he wasn't sure what yet. Just go. Anywhere. The phone in his pocket vibrated again, but Caspian ignored it. He pulled a map out of the drawer and laid it out on the table. California, Mexico, Key West. The route began to form in his mind. He could stop in San Francisco, San Diego, Cabo San Lucas, and then make it to Florida. It would take weeks, maybe months. He didn't care. The main thing was to get away from Portland. Caspian sat down at the table and pulled out his phone. 5 missed calls from Vivette and 3 text messages. He didn't open them. Instead, he dialed Brecken Hartley, his business partner and friend. Brecken answered on the second ring. "Cause," Bracken said, his voice surprised. "Why are you calling at this hour? Is everything okay?" "No," said Caspian, his voice even but tense. "Nothing is all right." "What happened?" Bracken asked. "Where are you anyway?" "On the pier, on the yacht," Caspian replied. "Listen, I need to take a vacation. For an indefinite period." "Wait, what?" Bracken said. "Cause, are you serious? We have projects coming up, clients waiting for drawings. You can't just walk away." "I can't stay," said Caspian. "I have to go, right now." "Cause, let's talk," Bracken said. "What happened? Is this about Vivette? Did you have a fight?" Caspian gripped the phone so tightly that his fingers turned white. "Quarrel?" he said. "No, Bracken, it wasn't a quarrel. I caught her with another man, in our bedroom." There was silence on the other end of the line. After a second, Bracken exhaled. "Oh my God, Cause," he said. "Are you serious? With who?" "Quinn Drake," Caspian said. "Her boss, or colleagues. It doesn't matter. I saw them together." "Shit," Bracken said. "Cause, I'm so sorry. What did you do?" "Hit him," said Caspian, and left. "I can't be there, Bracken. I can't look at her." Okay, Bracken said. "Look, I know you need time, but let's think about it. You can't just drop everything and sail away. We have a company, you have sons. Tavian and Rory will worry." "I'll call them," Caspian said, "but not now. I have to go away. Can you cover for me at the office?" "Cause, this is crazy," Bracken said. "You can't just run away. What are you going to do? Where are you going to go?" "South," Caspian said. "California, Mexico, maybe Florida. I haven't decided yet. I'll just be on the water." "What about Vivette?" Bracken asked. "Have you spoken to her?" "No," said Caspian, "and I don't want to. She calls, but I don't answer." "Cause, you should at least listen to her," Bracken said. "Maybe this was a mistake." "A mistake?" Caspian raised his voice. "She was in our bed with him, Bracken. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice." "Okay, I get it," Bracken said. "But are you sure you want to leave? This is a big step." "I'm sure," said Caspian. "I can't stay. Every corner of this house will remind me of her, of them." Bracken sighed. "Okay," he said. "I'll cover for you. But promise me you'll call, and don't do anything stupid, okay?" "I'm not going to do anything stupid," said Caspian. "I just want to be alone." "Cause, you're not alone," Bracken said. "You've got me, you've got the boys. We'll figure this out." "Thank you," said Caspian. "I'll call when I'm ready." "Be careful," Bracken said. "And keep your phone on, okay?" "We'll see," said Caspian and hung up. He set the phone down on the table and returned to the map. His fingers traced the lines of the coast. San Francisco, 3 days. Then San Diego, 2 more. Cabo San Lucas, a week if he didn't rush. Key West, weeks if he didn't stay too long. He knew this wasn't a plan, it was an escape, but he didn't care. The important thing was to get away. Caspian stepped out on deck and began untying the mooring lines. His movements were precise, practiced. He checked the sails, the engine, the water and food supplies. The yacht had enough canned food to last a couple of weeks, and the fuel tanks were almost full. He could stop at any port if he needed to. The phone vibrated again. Caspian glanced at the screen Vivette. He hung up and turned the phone off completely, shoving it into the drawer. He didn't want to see her name, didn't want to hear her voice. He went back to the cabin and turned on the navigation system. The screen lit up, showing a map of the Oregon coast. Caspian sat at the helm and started the engine. Lunar Tide came to life, the engine humming softly. He pulled the yacht out of the dock, heading for the harbor exit. The guard in the booth waved at him, but Caspian didn't respond. He looked at the water ahead, dark and calm. As the yacht moved out into the open sea, Caspian turned off the engine and raised the sails. The wind was light, but enough to keep the boat moving. He set the course south and secured the wheel. The sound of the waves crashing against the hull was the only sound. Caspian stood on the deck, watching the lights of Portland recede. "What am I doing?" he said out loud, his voice fading into the night. "Where am I going?" There was no answer. He returned to the cabin and sat down at the table. His gaze fell on a photograph pinned to the wall. He, Vivette, Tavian, and Rory on the beach 3 years ago. They were laughing, holding hands. Caspian took the photo down and put it in the drawer without looking at it. "Enough," he said to himself. "It's over." He pulled out a notebook and began writing down the route. San Francisco would be the first stop. Then San Diego. Then Mexico. He didn't know what he'd be doing in Key West, but that didn't matter. The main thing was to move forward, away from the pain. Caspian went on deck and checked the sails. The wind had picked up, and the yacht was picking up speed. He returned to the wheel and adjusted the course. His hands were busy, but his thoughts kept returning to Vivette. He pushed them away, concentrating on the sea. Vivette Wella sat on the edge of the bed in their Portland bedroom, clutching her phone. It was nearly 2 in the morning, and the house felt empty without Caspian. She could still see his face, full of anger, as he'd punched Quinn Drake and left. Quinn had left half an hour later, clutching his cheek and muttering threats, but Vivette had barely listened. Her mind was on Caspian. She dialed his number again, but the call went straight to voicemail. "Cassie, please," she said, her voice shaking. "Call me. We need to talk. I made a mistake. Please." She finished the message and threw the phone on the bed. It was the 6th message that night, and he hadn't responded to any of them. Vivette stood up, her legs shaking, and walked to the window. Caspian's truck wasn't in the driveway. She knew he wouldn't be back, but she kept her eyes on the road anyway. Vivette returned to the bed and picked up her phone. She opened a chat with Caspian, but the last message he had sent her was 3 days ago. "Coming tomorrow, love." Now she wrote, "Cause, please come home. I'll explain everything." She sent the message and waited, but the read sign didn't appear. She threw the phone on the pillow and covered her face with her hands. By morning, Vivette was awake. She was sitting in the kitchen with a cup of cold coffee when she decided to call her sons. Tavian, their eldest, was in graduate school for finance in Portland, renting an apartment nearby. Rory, their youngest, was a biology major at a university in Seattle. They needed to know that their father was gone, but she couldn't tell them the truth. Not now. Vivette dialed Tavian's number. He answered after a few rings, his voice sleepy. "Mom, what's wrong?" he said. "It's 5:30 in the morning." "Tav, I'm sorry it's so early," Vivette said, trying to sound calm. "I need to talk to you." "What happened?" Tavian asked, his voice growing wary. "Everything okay?" "No," Vivette said. "Your father, he's gone." "Gone," said Tavian. "Where did he go? Did you have a fight?" "It wasn't really a fight," Vivette said, her fingers tightening on the phone. "He got back from Seattle early, and we talked, and he left." "Talked?" said Tavian. "Mom, what do you mean? He just up and left? Why?" "Tav, it's complicated," Vivette said. "I don't know where he is. He's not answering his calls." "Wait," Tavian said. "You mean Dad just ran away? For no reason? That's not like him." "I know," Vivette said. "But he was upset. I've been trying to call him, but he won't answer." "Upset?" Tavian said. his voice growing louder. Mom, what did you do? He doesn't just leave. What happened? Tavian, please, Vivette said. Don't pressure me. I don't know what to do. Just, if he calls you, tell him to call me, okay? What if he calls me? Tavian said. Mom, are you serious? Do you think he'll call me and not you? What are you hiding from me? I'm not hiding anything, Vivette said, her voice breaking. Just help me, Tav. Please. Okay, Tavian said, but his tone was cold. If he calls, I'll tell him. But Mom, it's weird. Dad's not like that. Are you sure you don't want to tell me anything? No, Vivette said. Just, thank you, Tav. I love you. I love you too, Tavian said. But deal with this, okay? He hung up and Vivette stared at the phone. Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She dialed Rory's number, hoping he would be less insistent. Rory answered almost immediately. Mom, he said, did something happen? Rory, I'm sorry I woke you, Vivette said. I need to talk. Everything okay? Rory asked, his voice calm but attentive. Are you okay? Not exactly, Vivette said. Your father left home. I don't know where he is. Gone, Rory said. Gone how? Did you have a fight? It's not a fight, Vivette said. He came back from a business trip, and something happened. He left and isn't answering his phone. Something happened, Rory said. Mom, what do you mean? What happened? Rory, please, Vivette said. I don't want to go into details. Just if he calls you, tell him to call me. Mom, you're not telling me the truth, Rory said. Dad doesn't just leave. I know him. What did you do? What makes you think I did anything? Vivette said, her voice sharp. Rory, I'm trying to fix this. Just help me. Okay, Rory said, but his tone was wary. I'll talk to him if he calls. But Mom, you have to tell me what's going on. I'm not a little kid. I know, Vivette said. Just give me time, okay? I'll figure it out. Okay, Rory said, but call me if anything changes. And Mom, are you okay? Yes, Vivette lied. I'm fine. Thank you, Rory. I love you, Rory said. I love you too, Vivette said and hung up. She put the phone down on the table and covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders were shaking, but she wasn't crying. She couldn't let herself cry. She stood up and began pacing the kitchen, her steps quick and nervous. Caspian's phone was still off. She dialed his number again, but his voicemail answered right away. Cause, please, she said. Just call me. I don't know where you are. I'm worried. Please. She finished the message and sat down at the table. Her gaze fell on the family photo on the wall. Her, Caspian, Tavian, and Rory on the beach. They were smiling, holding ice creams. Vivette turned away, unable to watch. Caspian Wellwood was at the helm of the lunar tide, looking out over the dark waters of the Pacific Ocean. It was the morning of June 7th, and his yacht was gliding along the California coast, near Big Sur. He had left Portland 3 days earlier after finding Vivette in their bedroom with Quinn Drake. He hadn't turned on his phone since then, hadn't answered his calls or read his messages. He needed the silence, but thoughts of Vivette wouldn't leave him. The wind was light, the sails barely moving. Caspian turned on the engine to maintain speed. He checked the navigation system. The course was for San Francisco, where he planned to arrive tomorrow. Food and water supplies were in order, the fuel tanks were half full. He could have stopped in Monterey, but he decided to move on. The further from Portland, the better. Caspian sat on the deck, leaning against the mast. His eyes ached from lack of sleep, his hands ached from working the sails. He took a bottle of water from the chest and took a sip. One thought swirled in his head. How could Vivette do this? He had loved her for 20 years, given her everything he could, a home, a family, support, and she had chosen Quinn. Why, Vive, he said out loud, his voice lost in the sound of the waves. What did I do wrong? He shook his head and stood up to check the course. Thoughts of Vivette took him back to their first days. He didn't want to remember, but the memories kept coming. Caspian remembered seeing Vivette at college in Portland in the fall of 2003. He was 20, studying to be an architect, spending his nights drawing. She was a sophomore, studying marketing, and was always surrounded by people. He spotted her at a student cafe, sitting at a table with her friends, laughing, her hair falling in her face. Caspian walked past, hesitant to speak. "Hey, who are you?" she said as he spilled his coffee as he passed by. Her voice was warm, with a hint of mockery. "Sorry," Caspian said, his face turning red. Caspian, I didn't mean to offend you." "Caspian?" Vivette said, smiling. "That's an interesting name. I'm Vivette. Sit down, since you spilled my coffee." He sat down, not knowing what to say. Her friends giggled, but Vivette ignored them. "So, Caspian," she said, "what do you do besides pouring coffee?" "Architecture," he said. "I draw buildings. And you?" "Marketing," Vivette said. "Learning how to sell people things they don't need. Do you come here often?" "Yes, almost every day," said Caspian. "And you?" "Only when there's good coffee," she said with a wink. "Maybe we'll see each other again." "Maybe," he said, smiling. They started dating a month later. Their first date was in the park. They walked, ate sandwiches, talked about everything. Vivette was bright. Her energy filled the space. Caspian was quieter, but with her he felt alive. "Are you always this quiet?" Vivette asked, sitting on the grass. "Or am I scaring you?" "You're not scaring me," said Caspian. "It's just the way I am. I don't like to talk much." "And I do," Vivette said. "But you know, I like you. You're real." "You too," he said. "I didn't think you'd want to go for a walk with me." "Why?" Vivette said. "Do you think I'm too cool for you?" "Maybe," Caspian said, laughing. "You're the star of the campus." "And you're my architect," she said. "A deal." "Deal," he said. Caspian returned to the wheel, his fingers tightening on the handle. He remembered how close they had become. 6 months after they met, they had talked about the future. Vivette was seeing other guys, and Caspian knew about it. He didn't like it, but he didn't want to push her. "Vive, can we talk?" he said one day, sitting in her dorm room. "About us." "Of course, cause," Vivette said, putting her textbook down. "What happened?" "I know you see other people," Caspian said, "and I don't want to make you choose, but I need to know what we are to you." "Cassie," Vivette said, taking his hand, "you're important to me. These guys, they're just friends. I don't want to lose you." "I don't want to lose you either," Caspian said, "but I can't share you, Vive. When we're together, it's just us." "You want us to be exclusive?" Vivette asked. "Yes," he said, "if you're ready." Vivette looked at him, her face becoming serious. "Okay, cause," she said, "I agree. Just you. I promise." "And I promise," said Caspian. Caspian shook his head, pushing the memory away. He stepped out on deck, the wind in his face. They promised, he thought. She had promised, and he believed her. And now here he was, alone on a yacht, and she was with Quinn. "How could you?" he said out loud. 20 years, Vive. 2 sons, and you threw it all away. He returned to his cabin and sat down at the table. His eyes fell on the pad with the itinerary. San Francisco, San Diego, Cabo San Lucas, Key West. He wrote down the approximate time: 3 days to San Francisco, 5 more to San Diego. He didn't know what he would do in Key West, but it didn't matter. He just wanted to move. Caspian remembered their first summer together. They went to the Oregon coast, rented a cabin. Vivette liked to walk on the beach, collect shells. He drew on the porch, and she sat next to him, reading. "Cause, look," Vivette said, holding up the shell. "It's perfect, isn't it?" "Yes," said Caspian, smiling. "Like you." "Oh, come on," she said, laughing. "You're always so sweet. How do you do it?" "I don't know," he said. "You just make me feel that way." "I love you, Cause," Vivette said, kissing him. You know that, right? I know, said Caspian, and I love you. Caspian clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms. He stood up and paced the cabin. The memories were like a knife, but he couldn't stop them. He remembered Vivette supporting him when he failed his exam, how she danced with him at his graduation, how she cried tears of joy when Tavian was born, and then Rory. Why wasn't that enough? He said, looking out the window at the water. What did I do wrong? He returned to the deck and checked the sails. The wind had picked up, and the yacht was going faster. He adjusted course, looking at the horizon. The sun was rising higher, lighting up the water. Caspian took a sandwich from the box and ate it, not tasting it. His thoughts returned to Vivette. He recalled their conversation before their wedding in 2005. They were sitting in a cafe, planning the ceremony. "Cause, are you sure?" Vivette asked. "Weddings are serious. Are you ready?" "Yes," said Caspian. "I want to be with you, always. Even if I leave glasses everywhere," Vivette said, smiling. "Even so," said Caspian. "Are you ready?" "Yes," Vivette said. "You're all I need, Cause. I promise." "And I promise," he said. Caspian slammed his fist down on the table, the sound echoing around the cabin. He stood up, his breathing heavy. "It's a lie," he said. It was all a lie. He stepped out onto the deck and looked out at the water. The waves were crashing against the hull, and the boat was rocking. He knew he should be concentrating on sailing, but he couldn't stop thinking about Vivette. He remembered their 10th anniversary when he had given her that silk robe. She had put it on, laughed, hugged him. "Cause, you're the best," she said. "I love you so much." "And I you," he said. "I always will." Caspian sat down on the deck, his shoulders slumping. He felt an emptiness that had not been there before. He had lost not only Vivette, but also his faith in their past. All their moments, the laughter, the promises, the love now seemed false. "I can't stand it," he said, his voice quiet. "I can't think about you." He stood up and returned to the wheel. The yacht was sailing smoothly, and he checked the navigation. San Francisco was close. He decided not to stop for long to fill up, buy food, and move on. Key West was far away, but it was the goal. There he would find peace, or at least silence. Managed by Caspian Wellwood by the lunar tide, carefully guiding the yacht to the dock in Key West, Florida. It was the morning of August 15th, and he had arrived after 3 weeks of sailing, with stops in San Francisco, San Diego, and Cabo San Lucas. The sun was already hot, and the air smelled of salt and fish. Caspian secured the moorings, wiped the sweat from his brow, and looked around the dock. Yachts lined up, tourists scurried along the wooden walkways, and palm trees and bars could be seen in the distance. He jumped down onto the dock and checked to make sure the yacht was securely tied down. His hands were rough from handling the sails, and his face was dark from the sun. Caspian had planned to stay in Key West for a couple of weeks, to fuel the yacht, buy supplies, and perhaps find some of the quiet he hadn't had since he'd found Vivette and Quinn Drake in Portland. He still had his phone off, avoiding her calls and texts. Caspian noticed a woman standing at the edge of the dock, a few meters from his yacht. She was standing with a camera, filming the sunset. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a messy bun, and her white shirt with the sleeves rolled up fluttered in the wind. She moved slowly, choosing her angle, and muttered something under her breath. Caspian watched her for a few seconds, then turned back to the yacht. He needed to check the generator. It had been acting up since Mexico, and without it, the batteries wouldn't charge. He opened the hatch to the engine compartment and began to inspect the generator when he heard footsteps. The woman with the camera was standing nearby, looking at him. "Problems with the boat?" she said, her voice light and slightly hoarse. Caspian raised his head, wiping his hands with a rag. "Yes," he said. "The generator isn't pulling. I'm trying to figure out what's going on." "I'm Celeste," she said, smiling. "Celeste Rain. And you don't look like you're from around here." "Caspian Wellwood," he said, rising. "No, not from here. Came from Portland." Portland? Celeste said, her eyebrows raised. That's a long way. Is this your journey or your escape? Caspian froze. Her words had hit the mark. He looked at her, trying to figure out if she was joking or not. Her eyes, green and attentive, did not look away. Maybe both, he said. What are you doing here? Taking sunsets for tourists? Not really, Celeste said, lowering her camera. I'm a photographer. I travel, I take pictures of what I like. The sunsets in Key West are just a bonus. Sounds good, Caspian said, turning back to the generator. Better than fixing this thing. Celeste laughed and stepped closer, peering into the compartment. I could fix it, she said. Well, if I knew what it was. Caspian looked at her, his lips twitching into a smile, the first in weeks. Are you serious? He said. You don't even know what it's called. Hey, I'm a photographer, not a mechanic, Celeste said with a shrug. But I can hold a flashlight if you want. Thanks, but I can manage, said Caspian, although a flashlight wouldn't hurt. Celeste took out her phone and turned on the flashlight, pointing the light at the generator. There, she said. Now you owe me. Should I? Caspian said, raising an eyebrow. For the flashlight. Yeah, Celeste said. Maybe coffee, or the story of why you ran away from Portland. Caspian shook his head, but didn't answer. He turned back to the generator, checking the wires. Celeste stood nearby, not leaving. You don't want to talk, do you? She said. I understand. I didn't start talking right away, either when I came here. What's there to talk about? Caspian said, not looking at her. I'm just swimming. Well, I came here after my divorce, Celeste said, her voice quieter. My husband, he found someone better, or as he said, it just happened. So I took my camera and left. Caspian stopped, his hand hovering over the wire. He looked at Celeste. Her face was calm, but her eyes were hurt. I'm sorry, he said. It's hard. Yes, said Celeste. And you? What happened to you? Or do you just love the sea? Caspian's jaw tightened. He didn't want to speak, but something in her voice, the honesty, the lack of judgment, made him answer. My wife, he said. I caught her with another man, in our house. Celeste nodded, her face unchanged. Damn, she said. This is worse than just hearing about it. How are you? Are you okay? No, said Caspian. That's why I'm here. I don't want to think about it. I understand, Celeste said. I didn't want to think about it either, but it still creeps into your head, doesn't it? Yes, Caspian said, looking at the generator. Constantly. They were silent for a few seconds. Celeste pointed the flashlight at the wires, and Caspian continued working. You know, Celeste said, when I found out about my husband, I thought it was my fault, that I wasn't good enough. Then I realized it was his choice, not mine. Maybe, said Caspian, but that doesn't make it any easier. It doesn't, Celeste agreed, but it helps when you talk about it, at least a little. Caspian didn't answer. He pulled out the wire and checked it for breaks. Celeste stood nearby, holding a flashlight. Are you always this talkative? She said, smiling. Or is it me that's getting on your nerves? I didn't get it, said Caspian. I'm just not used to talking. Neither have I, Celeste said. But here in Key West, things are simpler. People are open. Maybe you'll open up too. We'll see, Caspian said, plugging the wire back in. If this generator works, maybe I'll talk. Agreed, Celeste said. And if it doesn't work, I'll still make you buy me coffee. Caspian snorted, shaking his head. You're not giving up, are you? He said. Never, Celeste said. Life has taught me. Caspian started the generator, but it hummed and died. He cursed under his breath. It looks like coffee is inevitable, Celeste said, turning off the flashlight. Any idea what's wrong with it? Not yet, said Caspian. We need to sort it out. Maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow? Celeste said. You're not going to sleep on this boat without electricity, are you? I'm used to it, said Caspian. 3 weeks without any problems. 3 weeks, Celeste said, her eyes widening. Did you sail here from Portland without stopping? There were stops, Caspian said. San Francisco, San Diego, Mexico. It's not a trip, it's a marathon, Celeste said. Why Key West? I don't know, said Caspian. It's far from Portland. That's a fair answer, Celeste said. Okay, Caspian, I'm not torturing you. But if you change your mind about the coffee, I take sunsets here every night. Find me. Thank you, said Caspian, and for the flashlight too. You're welcome, Celeste said, holding up the camera. Good luck with the generator. She turned and walked down the dock, her steps light. Caspian watched her until she disappeared behind the yachts. He turned back to the generator, but his thoughts were elsewhere. Celeste knew what it was like to be betrayed. He felt part of himself for the first time in weeks. Caspian sat on the deck, watching the sunset. He pulled out a notebook and wrote, Key West generator, supplies, 2 weeks. Then he added, Celeste photographer, divorce. He didn't know why he wrote it, but he didn't erase it. Maybe coffee isn't such a bad idea, he said out loud, looking at the water. He stood up and checked the moorings. The yacht was securely fastened. Caspian went down to the cabin, lay down on the bunk, and closed his eyes. For the first time in a long time, he slept without thinking about Vivette. Vivette Wellwood sat at a table in the Bean House Cafe in downtown Portland, clutching a latte that had gone cold. It was the morning of June 8th, and 4 days had passed since Caspian had found her in their bedroom with Quinn Drake and left. She hadn't slept well, there were dark circles under her eyes, and her phone was full of unanswered calls and texts to Caspian. He wasn't answering. Vivette glanced at the door of the cafe, waiting for her friend Lark Weston. She needed someone to talk to, and Lark, her high school friend, was the only one she could confide in. The door opened and Lark walked in, tall, with short brown hair and a bright green dress. She spotted Vivette, waved, and headed for the table. Vive, you look terrible, Lark said, sitting down opposite her. What's wrong? You said it was urgent. Vivette placed the cup on the table, her hands shaking. Lark, I've done a lot of things, she said, her voice quiet. I don't know where to begin. Start at the beginning, Lark said, her eyes narrowing. You're scaring me. What happened? Vivette looked out the window at the people hurrying along the sidewalk. She swallowed, steeling herself. Caspian left, she said. 4 days ago. He won't answer his calls. Gone, Lark said, leaning closer. Gone where? Did you have a fight? It's not a fight, Vivette said, her voice shaking. He came back from Seattle early and found me with someone else. Lark froze, her face pale. She leaned back in her chair, looking at Vivette. Are you serious? She said. Vive, have you cheated on Caspian? Vivette nodded, her eyes filling with tears. She pressed her fingers to her lips to keep from crying. Yes, she said. It was Quinn Drake, my colleague. Caspian came into the bedroom and saw us. Oh my God, Vive, Lark said, covering her mouth with her hand. How could you? Caspian is the best guy I know. What were you thinking? I didn't mean it, Vivette said, her voice breaking. It was a one-time thing, Lark. I didn't mean for it to happen. Once, Lark said, her voice sharpening. You think that's an excuse? You brought a man into your home, into your bedroom. How did you even get to that point? Vivette lowered her head, her fingers fiddling with the napkin on the table. Quinn and I were working late, she said. A campaign for a new client, a deadline. We were drinking wine, joking, and I don't know how it happened. I didn't plan it. Not planned, Lark said, her eyes narrowing. Vive, you didn't slip and fall on him. You made a choice, and now Caspian is gone. Where is he? I don't know, Vivette said, her voice barely audible. He's not answering. I called, I wrote, but he turned off his phone. And you're surprised? Lark said. You broke his heart, Vive. He probably doesn't want to see you. What did you do when he caught you? Vivette swallowed, her cheeks turning red. Caspian hit Quinn, she said. Then he left. I tried to stop him, but he wouldn't listen. Hit him, Lark said, her eyebrows raised. Caspian, who doesn't even raise his voice. Vive, do you have any idea how badly you hurt him? I know, Vivette said, her eyes filling with tears. Lark, I didn't mean to. I love Caspian. It was a mistake. A mistake? Lark said, shaking her head. Vive, it's not a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. You cheated on your husband. That's betrayal. Vivette covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. I know, she said. I can't fix it. I don't know what to do. Lark sighed and softened her tone. Okay, she said. Let's get this straight. Have you talked to Tavian and Rory? Yes, said Vivette, wiping away her tears. But I didn't tell them the truth. I said Caspian left after the conversation. You lied to them, Lark said, her voice growing louder. Vive, they're your sons. They have a right to know why their father is missing. I can't, Vivette said, her voice shaking. Tavian will be furious. He already blames me. And Rory, he'll be disappointed. I can't stand it. You can't stand it? Lark said, leaning forward. How can Caspian stand it? Or your sons, who think their father just ran away? Vive, you have to tell them the truth. What am I going to say? Vivette said, her eyes widening. Guys, I slept with a coworker and my dad left. They're going to hate me. They might, Lark said. But if you keep lying, it'll be worse. They'll find out, Vive, and then they'll lose trust not only in you, but in each other. Vivette shook her head, her fingers tightening on the napkin. I'm not ready, she said. I thought Caspian would come back and we'd sort this out, but he won't answer. Would you go back if you caught him with someone else? Lark said. Think about it, Vive. He saw you with this Quinn. Do you have any idea what that's like for him? I can imagine it, Vivette said, her voice breaking. I see it every night when I close my eyes. His face, Lark. He looked at me like I was a stranger. Because you were an outsider, Lark said, her voice hard. You ruined what you had, and now you have to live with it. Vivette began to cry, her tears falling onto the table. Lark reached out and squeezed her hand. I'm sorry, Lark said, her voice softening. I don't want to kill you, but you have to realize what you've done and start fixing it. What? Vivette said, wiping her cheeks. Caspian isn't answering. Tavian's angry. Rory's suspicious. What can I do? First, tell your sons the truth, Lark said. They're adults, Vive. They can handle it, and it shows you're taking responsibility. And if they don't forgive me, Vivette said, especially Tavian, he's so close to me. Then you'll work to win back their trust, Lark said. But lying will only make things worse. You want them to blame Caspian? Do you think that's fair? No, Vivette said, hanging her head. It's not his fault. I'm the one who messed it up. Then start with the truth, Lark said. Call Tavian and Rory today. Invite them home, sit down and talk. It's going to be hard, but it's the only way. Vivette nodded, but her face was full of fear. What about Caspian? She said. How can I get through to him? I don't know, Lark said. If he's turned off his phone, he doesn't want to talk. Give him time. But don't sit back. Work on yourself, Vive. Show him you're willing to fix it. Fix it, Vivette said, her voice weak. Lark, I lost him. I know it. Maybe you did, Lark said. But you didn't lose your sons. And you didn't lose yourself. Start with them. Vivette looked at Lark, her eyes red from crying. Do you think I can? She said. After all this. You're strong, Vive, Lark said. You always have been. But now you have to be honest. With yourself and with them. Vivette nodded, her fingers unclasping the napkin. Okay, she said. I'll call Tavian and Rory. Today. That's right, Lark said, smiling. And I'll be there if anything happens. You're not alone. Thank you. Vivette said, her voice shaking. I don't know what I'd do without you. You could have done it, Lark said, but I'm happy to help. Now finish your coffee, it's cold. Vivette smiled weakly and took the cup. She took a sip, but didn't taste it. Her thoughts were on Tavian and Rory. She was afraid of their reaction, especially Tavian, who had always been her protector. But Lark was right, lying only destroyed a family. Lark, what if they don't want to talk to me? Vivette said. What if Tavian just leaves? Then you'll give him time, Lark said. But you have to start. They deserve the truth, Vive, and Caspian too. Vivette nodded, her face becoming determined. I'll do it, she said. I'll call them as soon as I get home. Good job, Lark said. And Vive, what about this Quinn? Are you still working with him? Vivette pressed her lips together, her cheeks flushing. Yes, she said, but I avoid him. I don't want to see him. Quit, Lark said. Get another job. You can't stay there after all this. I know, Vivette said, but I need the money. The house, the bills. You'll find a way, Lark said. You can't work with this guy and think everything's going to be okay. It's like living in the past. Vivette sighed, her shoulders slumping. You're right, she said. I'll think about it. But first, the sons. That's right, Lark said. One step at a time. They finished their coffee and Lark paid the bill, despite Vivette's protests. They left the cafe and Lark hugged her friend. Call me after you talk to the boys, Lark said. I want to know how it went. Okay, Vivette said. Thank you, Lark. Hang in there, Lark said, and walked toward her car. Vivette stood on the sidewalk, looking out at the street. She pulled out her phone and opened a chat with Tavian. Her fingers hovered over the screen, but she typed, Tav, can you come home today? We need to talk. She sent the message. Andrew wrote the same thing. Her hands were shaking, but she knew Lark was right. She was beginning to understand how deeply she had hurt her family. Caspian Wellwood stood on deck at lunar tide, securing the fishing rod in its holder. It was morning, and the sun was beating down on the dock in Key West, Florida. He had been here for 5 days, since he had docked and met Celeste Rain, a photographer who shot sunsets. They had seen each other every day. She would come to the dock, joke about his broken generator, and somehow they had started hanging out. Today, Caspian had invited her fishing, and now she was sitting in the stern, holding a fishing rod and a can of Coke. Are you sure there are fish in here? Celeste said, looking out at the water. Her sunglasses had slipped down her nose, and her white t-shirt was slightly damp from the spray. There are fish, said Caspian, checking the bait. You just have to wait. They don't jump into the boat themselves. Too bad, Celeste said, smiling. It would be easier. How long have you been fishing? Since I was about 10, Caspian said, sitting down next to me. My father used to take me to the lakes in Oregon. What about you? Have you ever fished? Once, Celeste said. My brother dragged me to the pier in Miami. I caught a shoe. He still laughs. Caspian snorted, shaking his head. A boot, he said. It's a record. Better than nothing. Hey, don't laugh, Celeste said, nudging him with her elbow. I tried. What did you catch the first time? Mackerel, said Caspian. A small one. Father made me clean it. It was worse than catching it. Celeste laughed, throwing her head back. Her laughter echoed across the water, and Caspian looked at her. She was open, sincere, and that won him over. He hadn't talked much since leaving Portland, but with her it was easy. Celeste's fishing rod twitched, and she jumped up. Oh, what's that? She said, grabbing the reel. 'Cause I caught something. Easy, said Caspian, standing up. Don't jerk. Turn the reel slowly. Celeste started spinning, her face focused. A minute later, she pulled out a small fish, silver, about 20 centimeters. Look, she said, holding the fishing rod. I did it. Not bad, said Caspian, taking the fish off the hook. It's a snapper. A good catch. Snapper, Celeste said, looking at the fish. Is it edible? We can, said Caspian, but this one is small. Let him go. He carefully removed the hook and dropped the fish into the water. Celeste watched as it swam away. Do you always let them go? She said, sitting back down. Not always, said Caspian. If it's a big one, I can cook it, but it's better to let the small ones go. You're kind, Celeste said, smiling. I didn't think fishermen were like that. I'm not a fisherman, said Caspian. I'm an architect. It's just a hobby. An architect, Celeste said, her eyebrows raised. Seriously? You build houses? Houses, offices, sometimes bridges, Caspian said. I have a firm in Portland. Or rather, I had one. Was? Celeste said, looking at him. Have you left the business? No, Caspian said, his voice quieter. Just taking a vacation. My partner, Brecken, has everything under control. Celeste nodded, but didn't press. She opened a can of Coke and took a sip. You know, she said, when I left Miami, I thought I was giving up everything too. Photography was my job, but after the divorce, I just took pictures for myself. It helped me forget. Caspian looked at her, his fingers tightening on the fishing rod. How did you find out? He said. About my husband. Celeste sighed, her gaze falling on the water. He told me himself, she answered. He came home, sat on the sofa, and said he had another woman. They dated behind my back for 2 years. I didn't even suspect. Damn it, said Caspian. This is worse than finding them. I don't know, Celeste said. Maybe worse. I wondered how I hadn't noticed. I felt like a fool. You're not a fool, said Caspian. He made the choice. Yes, Celeste said, but it takes a while to sink in. What about you? What happened to you and your wife? Caspian's jaw tightened, his gaze falling on the fishing rod. He didn't want to speak, but Celeste was being honest, and he felt he had to answer. I came home early, he said. I found her with a colleague in our bedroom. Oh my God, Celeste said, her eyes widening. Cause, that's terrible. What did you do? I hit him, said Caspian, and I left. I've been here ever since. Celeste nodded, her face serious. I would have left too, she said. Or hit her. I don't know. Did you talk to her after that? No, said Caspian. She calls, but I don't answer. I don't want to hear her. I understand, Celeste said. My husband called too. I didn't answer for months. Then he stopped. And what do you feel now? Caspian said, looking at her. Better, Celeste said. But sometimes the pain comes back, especially at night. What about you? I don't know, Caspian said. I don't want to think about it, but it won't let go. It won't let go, Celeste said. But it will get easier. Not right away, but it will. Caspian nodded but didn't answer. He checked his rod, but there was no bite. Celeste finished her cola and put the can on the deck. Let's go swimming, she said, standing up. It's hot, but the water looks nice. Swim, Caspian said, looking at her. Are you serious? Yeah, Celeste said, taking off her t-shirt. She was wearing a bathing suit underneath. Come on, architect. Or are you afraid of the water? I'm not afraid, said Caspian, smiling, but I didn't bring shorts. Then jump in jeans, Celeste said, laughing. Live a little. She jumped into the water, causing a splash. Caspian watched as she emerged, throwing her hair back. Come on, Kaz, she cried. The water's warm. Caspian shook his head, but stood up. He took off his shirt and jumped in after her. The water was cool, and he emerged next to Celeste. You're crazy, he said, snorting. You're boring, Celeste said, splashing water at him. But I'll fix you. They swam for about 10 minutes, laughing and splashing. Caspian felt lighter than he had in weeks. Celeste was direct, without pretense, and he liked that. They got out on the yacht and Caspian gave her a towel. Celeste dried her hair and sat down on the deck. That was cool, she said. Thank you for not saying no. You're welcome, said Caspian, sitting down next to him. I haven't sailed in a long time. Do you have fun often? Celeste said, looking at him. Or do you just draw plans? Not often, said Caspian. I have 2 sons, a firm. It was no time for fun. Sons, Celeste said, her eyes lighting up. How old are they? Tavian is 22, Rory is 20, Caspian said. Tavian is in graduate school, Rory is studying to be a biologist. Cool, Celeste said. Have you talked to them? Do they know where you are? No, Caspian said, his voice lower. I didn't call. I don't want them to worry. Cause, Celeste said, her tone serious. They're your kids. They need to know you're okay. I'll call, said Caspian, but not now. I need time. Okay, Celeste said, but don't drag it out. They're probably going crazy. Caspian nodded, but changed the subject. And you? He said. Do you have children? No, Celeste said, her gaze falling. My husband and I tried, but it didn't work. Maybe it's for the best. Sorry, said Caspian. I didn't mean to butt in. It's all right, Celeste said, smiling. I'm used to it. Now I have a camera and the sea. That's enough. They fell silent, looking out at the water. The sun was setting, turning the sky orange. Celeste pulled out her camera and snapped a few pictures. What's this for? Caspian said. Selling photos. Sometimes, Celeste said, but mostly for myself. It reminds me that the world is beautiful even when things are bad. Caspian looked at her. Her words had touched him. He hadn't seen anything beautiful since that night in Portland, but with her he began to notice it, the water, the sky, her smile. Are you always like this? He said. Do you find the good in everything? Not always, Celeste said, but I will try. And you, always so serious? Not always, said Caspian, but now, yes, I suppose. We'll fix that, Celeste said with a wink. Fishing again tomorrow? If the generator doesn't get fixed, Caspian said, smiling. Okay, Celeste said, standing up. I'm going to go. I need to process the photos. See you tomorrow, Cause. See you, said Caspian. Vivette Wellwood stood at the kitchen table in her Portland home, clutching the edges of the countertop. She was waiting for her sons, Tavian and Rory, to tell her the truth about why Caspian had left. After talking to her friend Lark the day before, she knew she couldn't lie anymore. Her hands were shaking, and there was a lump in her throat. She set 3 glasses of water on the table, but no one had come. Vivette glanced at her watch. It was 10:15. Tavian had promised to be here by 10, and Rory was due in from Seattle by noon. The door opened and Tavian walked in, his backpack slung over one shoulder. He looked irritated, his dark hair disheveled. Mom, I'm here, he said, throwing his backpack on the couch. What's the emergency? I'm late for a lecture. Tav, thank you for coming, Vivette said, her voice tense. Please sit down. We need to talk. About what? Tavian said, crossing his arms. Is it about Dad? Is he back? No, said Vivette, sitting down at the table. He hasn't returned, but I must tell you something. Tavian frowned, but sat down opposite. What have you done, Mom? He said. I know you're hiding something. Dad doesn't just leave. Vivette swallowed, her fingers tightening around the glass of water. Let's wait for Rory, she said. I want you both to hear this. Rory, Tavian said, his voice growing louder. Mom, stop dragging it out. Tell me now. What did you do? Tavian, please, Vivette said, her eyes meeting his. It's hard. Give me a minute. Tavian leaned back in his chair, his face angry. Half an hour later, the door opened again and Rory walked in, his bag slung over his shoulder. He looked tired from the drive from Seattle. Mom, Tav, Rory said, setting his bag down by the door. What's going on? You said it was important. Sit down, Rory, Vivette said, gesturing to a chair. We need to talk. Rory sat down next to Tavian, his gaze attentive. "Is this about Dad?" he said. "Is he okay?" Vivette looked at her sons, her heart pounding. She clasped her hands to stop the shaking. "Guys," she said, her voice shaking, "I have to tell you something. It's, it's my fault your father left." Tavian leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Is it your fault?" he said. "What did you do, Mom?" Vivette swallowed, her eyes filling with tears. I cheated on your father," she said. "He caught me with another man in our house." Tavian froze, his face pale. Rory lowered his head, his fingers tightening on the edge of the table. "What are you doing?" Tavian said, his voice low and angry. "You slept with someone in your house?" "Yes," Vivette said, her voice breaking. "It was Quinn Drake, a colleague of mine. It was a one-time thing, and I—" "Once?" Tavian shouted, standing up. "Do you think that's an excuse? You betrayed Dad." "Tav, please," Vivette said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I didn't mean to. It was a mistake." "Mistake?" Tavian said, his fists clenching. "You destroyed our family, Mom. How could you?" Rory looked up, his face calm, but his eyes showing pain. "Mom," he said quietly, "why? Why did you do this?" Vivette shook her head, wiping away tears. "I don't know, Rory," she said. "Quinn and I were working late, drinking wine, and I didn't think so. I didn't want this to happen." "You didn't want to," said Tavian, pacing the kitchen. "You brought a man into our house. Dad saw it. How do you think he feels?" "I know I hurt him," Vivette said, her voice shaking. "I tried calling, but he won't answer." "And you're surprised?" Tavian said, turning to her. "Do you think he'll want to talk to you after this? I wouldn't either." "Tavian, stop," Rory said, his voice even. "Screaming won't fix anything." "Enough?" Tavian said, looking at his brother. "Rory, did you hear what she said? She cheated on Dad, and you're just sitting there?" "I heard," Rory said, "but yelling at Mom isn't going to help. We need to figure out what to do." "Do?" Tavian said, his voice full of anger. "She ruined everything. What do we do?" Vivette covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I love you, and your father." "Do you love me?" Tavian said, his voice cold. "Is this how you show love? Lying to us, cheating on Daddy?" "Tav, please," Vivette said, looking at him. "I'll do anything to fix this. I promise." "Fix it?" Tavian said, shaking his head. "You can't fix it, Mom. Dad left because of you." Rory put his hand on Tavian's shoulder. "Tav, sit down," he said. "Let her speak." Tavian looked at his brother, his jaw clenched. He sat down, crossing his arms. "Speak," he said. "What are you going to do?" Vivette wiped away her tears and looked at her sons. "I'll try to contact your dad," she said. "I'll find a way to explain. And I'll quit my job, where Quinn is. I don't want to see him." "You're leaving," Rory said. "This is serious, Mom. Are you sure?" "Yes," said Vivette. "I can't stay there. It's not right." Tavian snorted, looking away. "That won't bring Dad back," he said. "Do you think he cares about your promises?" "I know," Vivette said, "but I have to start. I don't want to lose you, too." Rory nodded. "Mom, you have to do this," he said. "Not just for Dad, but for us. We have to trust you." "I understand," Vivette said, her voice weak. "I will do everything to regain your trust." Tavian stood up, his chair creaking. "I have to go," he said. "I can't listen to this." "Tav, wait," Vivette said, standing up. "Please don't go." "Not now, Mom," Tavian said, looking at her. "I need to think. Don't call me yet." He grabbed his backpack and walked out, slamming the door. Vivette sank into a chair, her face wet with tears. "Rory," she said, looking at her youngest son, "do you hate me too?" "No," Rory said, his voice soft. "I don't hate you. But I'm disappointed, Mom. Dad didn't deserve this." "I know," Vivette said. I don't know how to fix it. Start with what you said, Rory said. Quit your job and find Dad. He needs to know you admit your guilt. I'll try, Vivette said. Thank you for not leaving. Rory nodded and took out his phone. I'll call Dad, he said. Maybe he'll answer me. Okay, Vivette said. If he answers, tell him I want to talk. Rory dialed Caspian's number, but the call went to voicemail. He left a message. Dad, it's Rory. I know what happened. Please call me. We're worried. Mom wants to talk. Love you. He hung up and looked at Vivette. He didn't answer, he said, but I'll try again. Thank you, Vivette said, her voice weak. Tavian, sitting in his car on the street, also dialed Caspian's number. The call went to voicemail. Dad, it's Tav, he said, his voice angry. Mom told me, I don't know where you are, but call me. Please. He hung up the phone and slammed his hand on the steering wheel. His eyes were wet, but he wasn't crying. Later, in Key West, Caspian turned on his phone for the first time in a week. He saw missed calls from Vivette, Tavian, and Rory. He heard Rory's message, but not Tavian's. He dialed Rory's number, and Rory answered right away. Dad, Rory said, where are you? In Key West, Caspian said, his voice even. I'm fine. Dad, Mom told me, Rory said, about what she did. She wants to talk. Not now, Rory, said Caspian. I need time. I understand, Rory said, but we're worried. Tavian is too. He's angry, but he wants to talk to you. I'll call him later, Caspian said. But Rory, don't interfere. This is between me and your mother. Okay, Rory said. But will you come back? I don't know, said Caspian. I'll call. I love you. I love you too, Dad, Rory said. Caspian hung up and turned off the phone. He sat on the decluner tide, looking at the water. Vivette told the truth, but it didn't change his pain. He wasn't ready to talk to her. Not yet. In Portland, Vivette sat at the table, staring at the empty glasses. She knew the truth had destroyed their family, but hiding it was worse. She picked up her phone and texted Caspian. I told the boys, please call. She sent the message, knowing there would be no answer. Caspian Wellwood stood on the dock in Key West, tightening the mooring lines. Lunar tide it was morning, and the sky over Florida was darkening. The yacht's radio was warning of a tropical storm that would hit that evening with winds up to 50 miles per hour. Caspian had been in Key West for a week, spending time with Celeste Rain, a photographer he had met on the dock. Now he was preparing the yacht for the storm, checking ropes and clearing everything off the deck. Ignacio Mendez, a local mechanic, approached the dock carrying a coil of rope, his face tanned and his hands calloused from work. Caspian, are you ready? Ignacio said, throwing ropes onto the dock. This storm is no joke. We need to secure all the boats. Yes, said Caspian, tying a knot. Mine is almost done. What about the others? Half is empty, Ignacio said. People took the yachts to Miami, but the ones that are left need to be saved. Will you help? Of course, said Caspian, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Where to start? Over there, Ignacio said, pointing to the adjacent dock. There are 3 yachts floating. We need to add ropes and cushions. Caspian nodded and followed Ignacio. They worked quickly, hauling ropes and securing rubber cushions between the yachts and the dock. The wind was picking up, and the water in the harbor was beginning to swell. Caspian thought about Vivette, about her affair with Quinn Drake, but the work was distracting. He hadn't turned on his phone since he'd spoken to Rory, and he didn't want to know if she'd called. An hour later, Celeste approached the dock, her hair tousled by the wind, carrying a backpack and a camera in a case. Kaz, she shouted over the noise of the wind. What are you doing? There's a storm coming. Securing the yachts, Caspian said, tightening the rope. Celeste, you'd better leave. It's dangerous. Leave, Celeste said, putting her backpack on the dock. I can help. What should we do? Caspian looked at her, his face serious. This is no joke, he said. The wind will be strong. You could get hurt. I'm not made of sugar, Celeste said, crossing her arms. Tell me what to do. Ignacio turned to her, smiling. You're brave, he said. Okay, hold the ropes. Pass them to us when we tell you. Celeste nodded and took the skein. The three of them worked, shouting over the wind. Caspian and Ignacio ran between the yachts, and Celeste hauled in ropes and cushions. 2 hours later the dock was ready, but the sky had turned black, and the first drops of rain fell on the pier. That's it, Ignacio said, wiping his face. Now to the shelter. Caspian, are you coming to me? To you? Said Caspian, looking at him. Have you got a place? Yes, Ignacio said. The house on the hill. Solid. You and your friend can stay. Celeste looked at Caspian, her eyebrows raised. Girlfriend, she said, smiling. 'Cause you didn't tell me we were official yet. Caspian shook his head, his lips twitching. Ignacio, this is Celeste, he said. She's just helping. It just helps, Celeste said with a wink. But I'm coming with you. I don't want to get wet. Okay, Ignacio said. My car is there. Let's go. They climbed into Ignacio's old pickup, Celeste, between the men. The rain had picked up, pounding the roof. Ignacio drove through narrow streets up a hill. The house was a small, concrete block with a tin roof. It smelled of coffee and wood. Ignacio turned on the light, and they entered a living room with a couch and a wooden table. Sit down, Ignacio said, pointing to the sofa. I'll get some towels. You're wet. Thank you, Caspian said, taking off his wet shirt. He was left in his t-shirt, his hair plastered to his forehead. Celeste sat down on the sofa, shaking the water off her hands. Is this your home? She said, looking at Ignacio. It's cozy. Mine and my sister's, Ignacio said, returning with towels. She's in Miami, so there's plenty of room. Caspian took a towel and wiped his face. Celeste dried her hair, her t-shirt sticking to her shoulders. Do you often meet strangers? She said, smiling at Ignacio. Only those who save my yachts, Ignacio said, laughing. Would you like coffee or beer? Coffee, said Caspian. Beer, Celeste said. I deserve it after the day I've had. Ignacio went into the kitchen and Caspian sat down next to Celeste. The wind roared outside the window and the rain beat on the roof. Are you okay? Caspian said, looking at her. I didn't expect you to stay. I told you I'm not made of sugar, Celeste said. And besides, I couldn't leave you alone in this storm. I could manage, said Caspian, but his voice was soft. I know, Celeste said, but two is better, right? Ignacio returned with 2 mugs of coffee and a bottle of beer. He placed them on the table and sat down in the chair. The storm will last until morning, he said. You can sleep here. The sofa folds out. Thank you, Ignacio, said Caspian. We won't disturb you. Don't bother me, Ignacio said. I'm glad for the company. I'm usually alone on nights like this. Celeste opened the beer and took a sip. Tell me about yourself, Ignacio, she said. Have you been in Key West all your life? Almost, Ignacio said. I was born in Miami, but I moved here as a child. I clean boats. I live a simple life. And you? What do you do? I take pictures, Celeste said. I travel. I take pictures of sunsets, people, the sea. After the divorce, I decided to live for myself. Divorce? Said Ignacio, looking at her. Too bad. And you, Caspian? Caspian clutched his mug, his fingers turning white. I left Portland, he said. I needed a break. Celeste looked at him, but didn't press. Ignacio nodded. I understand, he said. The sea is a healer. Will you stay in Key West? I don't know yet, said Caspian. Maybe a couple of weeks. Me too, Celeste said, until sunsets get boring. Ignacio smiled and stood up. I'm going to bed, he said. Good night. Calm down, said Caspian. Ignacio went into the bedroom, closing the door. Caspian and Celeste remained in the living room. The wind howled and the light flickered, but did not go out. Are you really okay? Celeste said, looking at Caspian. You look like you haven't slept in a week. I haven't slept, said Caspian, looking into his mug. My thoughts won't let me. About your wife, Celeste said, her voice soft. Yes, said Caspian, and about the sons. Rory called. She told them. Told you? Celeste said, her eyebrows raised. About the betrayal. It seems so, said Caspian. I spoke to Rory. He asked me to come back. And you? Celeste said. Do you want to go back? No, said Caspian. Not now. I can't see her. Celeste nodded, her fingers twirling the bottle. I didn't come back, she said. My husband begged me, but I couldn't. Every time I thought about him, I saw him with her. That's how I am, said Caspian. I see her with him. I can't turn it off. It will pass, Celeste said. Not right away, but it will pass. Have you talked to your sons? Only with Rory, said Caspian. Tavian called, but I didn't answer. I don't know what to say. Tell me you're okay, Celeste said. They're worried, cause it's not their fault. I know, said Caspian. I'll call. Soon. Celeste looked at him, her eyes warm. You're a good father, she said. And a good man. Don't forget that. Caspian met her gaze, his face softening. Thank you, he said. You too. You're good. I didn't think I'd meet anyone I could talk to. I'm a photographer, Celeste said, smiling. I see people, and you, cause you're not as closed off as you think. Perhaps, said Caspian, his lips twitching. You make me talk. It's my talent, Celeste said, finishing her beer. What's next? Staying in Key West? I don't know, said Caspian. Maybe I'll swim on. What about you? Here for now, Celeste said. But I don't plan to. I live for the day. Sounds simple, said Caspian. It's that simple, Celeste said. Try it, cause. Don't think about tomorrow. Just live. Caspian nodded, his gaze falling to her hand where it lay on the table. He felt a warmth that hadn't been there before. She wasn't just a friend. He saw something more in her, but he was not ready to admit it. Let's go to bed, he said, getting up. The sofa is yours. And you, Celeste said, looking at him. I'm on the floor, said Caspian. Gentlemen, Celeste said, laughing. Good night, cause. Calm down, said Caspian. Caspian Wellwood stepped off the plane at the Portland airport, clutching the handle of his backpack. He was back for the first time since the day he had found Vivette and Quinn Drake in their bedroom. After 6 weeks in Key West, fishing and talking to Celeste Rain, a call from Brecken Hartley, his business partner, had forced him back. Quinn was suing him for assault, and Caspian couldn't ignore it. He left Lunar tied at the pier and flew in to sort things out. The airport was crowded, and Caspian headed for the exit, avoiding everyone's eyes. His face was tanned, his hair had grown out, and his t-shirt smelled of the sea. He hadn't turned on his phone since he'd spoken to Rory, and he didn't know if Vivette had tried to contact him. He didn't want to know. He needed to see his lawyer and decide what to do next. Caspian got into a taxi and gave the address of Brecken's office. As he drove, he looked out the window at the familiar streets of Portland. Every corner reminded him of Vivette, the cafe where he had had coffee, the park where he had walked with Tavian and Rory. He clenched his fists, pushing the thoughts away. The taxi stopped outside the firm's building and Caspian walked into the office. Bracken was waiting in the reception area, his face worried. Cause, Bracken said, standing up. You look like you've been living on an island. Glad to be back. Not for long, said Caspian, shaking his hand. What about this lawsuit? Come on, Bracken said, leading him into the office. Sit down. This is serious. Caspian sat down, throwing his backpack on the floor. Bracken closed the door and sat down at the table. Quinn Drake is suing you, Bracken said. Assault. He claims you hit him without cause, and he's asking for damages for his injuries and emotional distress. No reason, Caspian said, his voice cold. He was in my bedroom with my wife. That's the reason. I know, Bracken said, holding up his hands. But he says you attacked without warning. He's got a bruise and a hospital bill. His trial is next week. Damn it, said Caspian, leaning back in his chair. What should I do? I found a lawyer, Bracken said. Tess Ridley. She's good at this kind of thing. Want to meet her today? Yes, said Caspian. The sooner the better. Bracken nodded and dialed the number. A minute later, he hung up. She's free in an hour, Bracken said. Cause, how are you? You haven't called or written. We've all been worried. I'm fine, Caspian said, looking out the window. I was in Key West, swimming, thinking. And Vivette, said Bracken. She called me every day, asking where you were. I don't want to talk to her, said Caspian. Did she tell the boys? Yes, Bracken said. Rory talked to me. Tavian too. They want you back. Not now, Caspian said. I have this lawsuit to deal with. And I want a divorce. Bracken froze, his eyes widening. Divorce, he said. Cause, are you sure? This is a big step. I'm sure, said Caspian. I can't live with her after this. I can't trust her. Okay, Bracken said, sighing. Tess will help with that too. But think about it, Cause. You have 2 sons, a house, a business. I've been thinking, said Caspian. I've been thinking for 6 weeks. This is the end. Bracken nodded, his face serious. Okay, he said. I'll back you up. Come on, Tess is waiting. They left the office and drove to Tess Ridley's law firm, a 10-minute drive away. Tess, a woman in her 40s with short dark hair, met them in her office. Her desk was piled high with files, but she smiled as she shook Caspian's hand. Mr. Wellwood, she said, sit down. Bracken told me about the situation. Let's get this straightened out. Caspian sat up, his hands resting on his knees. Call me Caspian, he said. What about this lawsuit? Tess opened the folder and looked through the papers. Quinn Drake has filed a civil suit for assault, she said. He claims you struck him on June 3rd in your home, causing injury to his face. He is seeking $50,000 for medical bills and emotional distress. $50,000? Caspian said, his voice growing louder. He slept with my wife. I hit him once. I understand, Tess said, her voice calm. But the law looks at the facts. You hit him, it's assault. He has a hospital note and a witness, your wife. Vivette, Caspian said, his jaw clenching. She's supporting him? She didn't file a report, Tess said. But she confirmed to the police that you hit Drake. That makes it complicated. Damn it, said Caspian, looking at the floor. What's in store for me? Worst case, Tess said, the court finds you guilty and you pay compensation. Perhaps a fine or community service. Best case, we prove provocation and the claim is dismissed or the amount is reduced. Provocation, said Caspian. He was in my bedroom with my wife. That's not provocation. That's an argument, Tess said. But the judge will decide if it's enough. We need to prepare a defense. Are you ready to tell us what happened? Yes, said Caspian. I came back from Seattle, walked into the bedroom, and saw them. Hit him and left. Tess wrote, her pen moving quickly. Okay, she said. That will help. Are there any witnesses other than Vivette? No, said Caspian. Just the 3 of us. Got it, Tess said. I'll start work. The trial is in 6 days. Will you be in town? Yes, said Caspian. I'll stay at the hotel. Okay, Tess said. Anything else? Bracken mentioned divorce. Caspian nodded, his face firm. I want a divorce, he said. As soon as possible, and division of property. Tess looked at him, her eyes attentive. Divorce is a separate process, she said. How long have you been married? 20 years, said Caspian. We have a house, savings, and 2 sons. They are grown up. That makes it easier, Tess said. Oregon divides property equally unless there's an agreement. Do you want to negotiate with your wife or go to court? I don't want to talk to her, said Caspian. Give me the papers. I want half of everything. Okay, Tess said, writing. I'll get the paperwork ready. Vivette will have it in a couple of days. She can agree or disagree. Are you ready for that? Yes, said Caspian. I want to finish this. I understand, Tess said. The divorce will take months, even if she doesn't fight it. The Drake lawsuit is more important now. I'll call as soon as I have news. Thank you, said Caspian, standing up. How much do I owe you? Nothing yet, Tess said. We'll figure it out after the trial. Bracken said you were his partner. That's enough. Caspian nodded, shook her hand, and walked out with Bracken. It was drizzling outside, and Caspian turned up the collar of his jacket. What next? Bracken said, looking at him. Stay in the office? No, said Caspian. I'll find a hotel. I need to think about it. Cause, Bracken said, his voice soft. You can stay with me. You don't have to be alone. Thank you, said Caspian, but I want to be alone. Okay, Bracken said, but call and talk to the boys. They're going crazy. I'll call, said Caspian. Soon. Bracken nodded and clapped him on the shoulder. Hang in there, he said. We'll figure it out. Caspian got into a taxi and gave the address of a hotel in the center. In the room, he threw his backpack on the bed and sat by the window, looking out over the city. He took out his phone, turned it on, and saw dozens of missed calls. Vivette, Tavian, Rory. He didn't listen to the messages. Instead, he texted Rory, I'm in Portland. I'm fine. I'll call you soon. He sent it and turned off the phone. Caspian Wellwood sat in a Portland courtroom, his hands in his lap. It was the morning of July 10th, and he was waiting for Quinn Drake's assault trial to begin. Caspian had returned to town a week ago after 6 weeks in Key West and was staying at a hotel, avoiding the house where he had found Vivette and Quinn on June 3rd. His attorney, Tess Ridley, sat next to him, shuffling papers. She wore a sharp gray suit, her face calm but focused. Relax, Caspian, Tess said, looking at him. We're ready. Their case is weak. I hope so, Caspian said, his voice low. I want to get this over with. The courtroom was filled with people. Quinn Drake walked in, his face tense, the faintest trace of a bruise on his cheek. He sat down next to the lawyer, a man in a black suit, and avoided looking at Caspian. The judge, a woman in her 50s with short gray hair, walked in and took her seat. The case is Drake versus Wellwood, the judge said, looking at the papers. Assault. Mr. Drake, is your lawyer ready? Yes, Your Honor, Quinn's attorney said, standing. We seek compensation for physical and emotional damages. Tess stood up, her voice clear. Your Honor, my client admits the incident, she said, but we contend that the actions were provoked. Mr. Drake was in my client's home in an inappropriate situation. The judge nodded, taking notes. Caspian looked at Quinn, his fists clenched under the table. He remembered the night he'd hit him. Quinn with his shirt unbuttoned, Vivette in her dressing gown, their wine on the nightstand. Mr. Drake, Quinn's lawyer said, calling him to the stand. Tell us what happened on June 3rd. Quinn stood up, straightened his tie, and began. I was at Vivette Wellwood's house, he said. We were discussing work. Caspian came in and, without warning, punched me in the face. I didn't provoke him. You were discussing work in the bedroom? Tess said, standing up. At midnight? Quinn coughed, his cheeks turning red. Yes, he said. We were drinking coffee and working on a project. Coffee? Tess said, raising an eyebrow. Vivette Wellwood told the police you were drinking wine. Is your memory failing you? It doesn't matter, Quinn's lawyer said. My client didn't attack. Your client hit him for no reason. There was a reason, Tess said. Mr. Drake was in an intimate situation with my client's wife in their bedroom. That's enough provocation. The judge looked at Quinn. Mr. Drake, she said, do you confirm that you were with Mrs. Wellwood in the bedroom? Yeah, Quinn said, his voice tight. But nothing happened. We were just talking. Your Honor, Tess said, opening the folder, we have a statement from Mrs. Wellwood confirming the intimate nature of the encounter. My client acted under emotional stress. Quinn clenched his jaw. His lawyer shook his head. That doesn't justify the attack, the lawyer said. My client was injured and wants compensation. The judge took notes, her face neutral. Mr. Wellwood, she said, your lawyer. Caspian stood up and walked to the podium, his steps firm. Tess asked the first question. Caspian, she said, tell me what happened on June 3rd. I came back from Seattle early, Caspian said, his voice even. I walked into the bedroom and saw Quinn with my wife. They were close. I hit him once and left. Did you threaten him? Tess said. No, said Caspian. I just left. Why did you hit him? Tess said. Because he was with my wife, said Caspian. In my house. I didn't think so. I just did it. Tess nodded and turned to face the judge. Your Honor, she said, my client admits the action, but it was provoked. We ask for mitigation. Quinn's lawyer stood up. Mr. Wellwood, he said, you could have left without violence. Why did you attack? I didn't attack, Caspian said, his voice hardening. I was defending my home. He shouldn't have been there. You caused injury, the lawyer said. That's a crime. That's enough, the judge said, raising her hand. I've heard both sides. The decision will be in an hour. Caspian returned to his seat, his shoulders tense. Tess put her hand on his elbow. You held up well, she said. His case is weak. I think we'll win. I hope so, Caspian said, looking at Quinn, who avoided his gaze. An hour later, the judge returned. Mr. Wellwood, she said, you admit assault, but the circumstances point to provocation. I impose a 3-year probationary period with no conviction. If you break the law during that period, the case will be retried. Compensation for Mr. Drake is denied. Case closed. Caspian exhaled, his hands relaxing. Tess smiled. Very well, she said. You're free to go. Let's go. Quinn stood up, his face red. He said something to the lawyer, but Caspian wasn't listening. He walked out of the courtroom with Tess, feeling relieved but not happy. What now? He said, standing in the hallway. With a divorce? The papers are filed, Tess said. Vivette got them yesterday. She can sign or contest. I'll let you know when I have news. Thank you, said Caspian. I'm returning to Key West tomorrow. Stay in touch, Tess said, and stay out of trouble. I'll try, said Caspian, shaking her hand. He left the courthouse and headed to the airport to buy a ticket for tomorrow. In the waiting room, he noticed Vivette. She was standing at the exit, her face pale, her eyes red. She saw him and stepped forward. Cause, she said, her voice shaking. Please talk to me. Caspian stopped, his jaw clenching. How did you know I was here? He said, his voice cold. Brecken said, Vivette said, her hands fiddling with her bag. Cause, it's so good to see you. We need to talk. About what? Caspian said, crossing his arms. Did you get the divorce papers? Vivette nodded, her eyes filling with tears. Yes, she said. But Cause, please don't do this. I love you. We can fix this. Fix it? Caspian said, his voice growing louder. You slept with Quinn in our bedroom. What's there to fix? It was a mistake, Vivette said, tears streaming down her face. One time, Cause, I didn't mean to hurt you. Once, said Caspian. Do you think I'll believe you? How long have you been lying to me? I didn't lie, Vivette said, stepping closer. It happened once. I swear. Please come home. Caspian stepped back, his face hard. Home, he said. This isn't my home, not after what you did. Cause I quit my job, Vivette said, her voice breaking. I can't see Quinn. I want to start over. For us, for Tavian and Rory. Not for them, said Caspian. You did it for yourself. Answer me, Vive. Why did you change? Vivette opened her mouth, but fell silent. Her eyes darted, and she shook her head. I don't know, she said. It just happened. I wasn't thinking. You don't know, Caspian said, his voice full of pain. You destroyed our family, and you don't know why. Cause, please, Vivette said, holding out her hand. Give me a chance. I'll do anything to make you forgive me. Caspian pulled away, not allowing her to touch. A chance, he said. I gave you 20 years. You threw them away. I can't trust you. Cause, don't go, Vivette said, her tears dripping onto the floor. I love you. Please. That's enough, Caspian said, his voice quiet but firm. I'm going back to Key West. Don't call me until you tell me why. Sign the papers. He turned and walked towards the reception desk without looking back. Vivette called out, following him. Cause, please, she said, don't leave us. Caspian didn't stop. He bought a ticket for the morning flight and sat in the waiting room, his hands shaking. Vivette couldn't explain it, and that was what hurt the most. He knew divorce was the only way. He wouldn't go back. Never. Caspian Wellwood stood on the porch of his rented house on Sanibel Island, Florida, looking out over the bay. It was the morning of August 25th, and the sun was rising over the water, illuminating the palm trees. He had moved here 2 weeks ago, after serving a 3-year probation sentence in Portland for the assault of Quinn Drake. Caspian left lunar Tidine Key West and decided to start a new life here, away from Vivette and the past. The house was small, 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a view of the sea, but it was enough. Caspian walked into the living room, where blueprints and a laptop lay on the table. He had arranged with Brecken Hartley, his partner, to open a branch of their architectural firm on Sanibel, focusing on designs for coastal homes. Caspian worked remotely, but flew to Portland once a month to meet with clients. His phone was on, but he answered only Brecken, his sons Tavian and Rory, and Celeste Rain, a photographer he had befriended in Key West. Vivette hadn't called since he'd seen her at the airport, and he was glad for that. Caspian sat down at his desk and opened his laptop, checking sketches of a house for a client in Miami. His thoughts were interrupted by a call. It was Celeste, who had moved to Miami a week ago to be closer to her clients. "Cause, hi," Celeste said, her voice cheerful. "How's your island? Has it sunk yet?" "So far it's holding up," Caspian said, smiling. "And you? Miami hasn't swallowed you up?" "Almost," Celeste said, laughing. "I shoot a lot of weddings. Look, I'm free this weekend. Can I come over?" Caspian looked at the drawings, his fingers frozen on the table. "Come," he said. "Seriously?" "Yeah," Celeste said. "I want to see your new house, and the sea, and maybe you." Caspian felt a warmth in his chest, but he didn't show it. "Okay," he said. "Come, I can meet you at the airport." "Cool," Celeste said. "Will Saturday morning be okay?" "Yes," said Caspian. "Right when you buy a ticket." "Agreed," said Celeste. "Don't miss me, architect." "I'll try," Caspian said, his voice soft. He hung up and went back to his drawings, but he couldn't concentrate. Celeste was direct, sincere, and he appreciated that. Their time in Key West fishing, swimming, talking had brought them closer, but he kept his distance, afraid of more pain after Vivette. Now that she was coming, he didn't know what to expect. By Saturday, Caspian had cleaned the house, bought groceries, and checked the guest bedroom. He met Celeste at the Fort Myers airport, an hour outside Sanibel. She walked out of the terminal wearing a white shirt and jeans, with a backpack and camera slung over her shoulder. "Cause," she said, hugging him. "You look like a local. Where's your tan?" "Working," Caspian said, smiling, "and it's like you never left the beach." "This is Miami," Celeste said, adjusting her glasses. "Come on, show me your island." They got into Caspian's rented pickup and drove to Sanibel. Celeste looked out the window, taking pictures of the bridge and palm trees. It's beautiful, she said. Why Sanibel? Quiet, said Caspian, and far from Portland. Honestly, Celeste said, looking at him, are you happy here? For now, yes, said Caspian. The work is going well, the house is nice. And you, is Miami your home? Not exactly, Celeste said. I'm renting an apartment, but it's temporary. I'm still looking for my own place. They reached the house, and Caspian showed Celeste the living room, kitchen, and veranda. Not bad, Celeste said, setting her backpack down. You've settled in, Cause. I'm impressed. Thank you, said Caspian. Would you like some coffee or the beach? The beach, Celeste said. But first, coffee. I didn't sleep because of the early flight. Caspian made coffee, and they sat on the veranda looking out over the bay. Tell me about the company, Celeste said, holding her mug. Are you the boss now? Not exactly, said Caspian. I opened a branch for Bracken. I design houses for the coast. I fly to Portland once a month. That sounds cool, Celeste said. And the sons? Have you talked to them? Yes, Caspian said, his voice lower. Tavian called, apologized for blaming me. Rory, too. They want to come for Christmas. That's good, Celeste said, smiling. They love you, Cause. And Vivette? Caspian clutched his mug, his face tense. I haven't spoken to her, he said. She got divorce papers. Tess, my lawyer, is handling it. Divorce, Celeste said, looking at him. Are you sure you're ready? Yes, said Caspian. I can't go back, not after what she did. Celeste nodded, her eyes soft. I understand, she said. My divorce was a year ago. It's hard, but it gets easier. I hope so, said Caspian. And you? Are you seeing anyone? Celeste laughed, throwing her hair back. No, she said. After my husband, I decided to live for myself. But I'm not against good company. Caspian looked at her, his heart beating faster. He looked away, finishing his coffee. Let's go to the beach, he said, standing up. Let's go, Celeste said, smiling. They spent the day at the beach, collecting shells and swimming. Celeste photographed the sunset while Caspian watched her. Her laughter, her ease, it was what he missed. That evening, they cooked dinner fish Caspian had caught in Key West and a salad. You cook better than I thought, Celeste said, sitting at the table. Where did you learn to do it? Myself, said Caspian. When my sons were little, I often cooked. Vivette didn't like the kitchen. You're a good father, Celeste said, looking at him, and a good friend. Friend, Caspian said, his eyebrows rising. Is that all? Celeste smiled, her cheeks turning red. Maybe more, she said, looking at her plate. If you want. Caspian looked at her, his fingers hovering over his fork. He hadn't been prepared for this, but he couldn't deny what he felt. Celeste was different, honest, open, without the pain that Vivette carried. I want to, he said, his voice quiet. But I need time. We have plenty of time, Cause, Celeste said, her eyes meeting his. I'm in no hurry. They finished dinner, and Celeste helped clear the dishes. They sat on the veranda, listening to the waves. Celeste moved closer, her shoulder touching his. Cause, she said, are you happy here? More than I was, he said, especially now. Celeste smiled and laid her head on his shoulder. Caspian didn't pull away. He felt her warmth, and it was right. Will you stay the night? He said, looking at the water. If you don't mind, Celeste said, her voice soft. I don't mind, said Caspian. They went into the house, and Celeste lay down in the guest bedroom. Caspian lay down on his own, but did not sleep. He thought about Celeste, about her smile, about how she had changed his life. He knew that their friendship had become something more. The next day, Celeste flew to Miami, but promised to return within a week. They began texting every day, and she came to Sanibel every weekend. A month later, after dinner on the beach, Caspian kissed her under the stars. Cause, Celeste said, her voice shaking. Are you sure? Yes, Caspian said, holding her hand. I need you. You too, Celeste said, smiling. Their romance grew, slowly but surely. Celeste remained in Miami, but spent half her time in Sanibel. Caspian worked on projects. He flew to Portland, but came back to her. He felt like he had found not just a home, but a person he could be himself with. Celeste, he said one day, sitting on the veranda, will you stay with me? If you want, she said, her eyes shining. I want to, said Caspian. Always. Vivette Wellwood sat in her attorney's office in Portland, pen in hand over the divorce papers. She had finally decided to sign the papers Caspian had filed through Tess Ridley 2 months ago. After he had left, after he had caught her with Quinn Drake, Vivette had tried to call him, begging him to come back, but he had been adamant. Now she knew she had lost him forever. Are you sure, Mrs. Wellwood? Said the lawyer, a man of about 50 in a gray suit. You're giving up half your savings and investments. That's a significant amount. Yes, Vivette said, her voice quiet but firm. I want to keep the house. That's all I need. Okay, the lawyer said, taking notes. You keep the house and the mortgage. Caspian takes half the savings, the investments, and his share of the firm. Do you agree? Yes, Vivette said, signing the papers. I don't want to argue. Let this end. The lawyer nodded and collected the documents. I'll send this to Tess Ridley, he said. The divorce will be finalized in a month, unless there are objections. Thank you, Vivette said, standing up. I want this to go quickly. She walked out of the office, her hands shaking. Home was where Tavian and Rory had grown up, and she couldn't lose it. But giving up the money was her way of showing she didn't want to cling to Caspian's past. She knew she was guilty. Vivette got into the car and pulled out her phone. She texted Tavian and Rory. I signed the papers. Dad is free now. Please talk to him. She sent the text and drove home, feeling empty. 2 days ago, Vivette quit the marketing company where she worked with Quinn. She hadn't seen him since that night, but every day at the office was a reminder of her mistake. Now she started a new career as a freelance marketing consultant, working from home. Her first client, a local store, has already signed on, giving her hope. I have to keep moving, Vivette said out loud, looking down the road. For myself. For the boys. Meanwhile, on Sanibel Island, Caspian sat at his desk in his rented house, reviewing plans for a new project. His branch of Bracken's architectural firm was growing. 3 clients had signed contracts for waterfront homes. He was working remotely, but he was scheduled to fly to Portland in a week. His phone rang, revealing an incoming video call from Rory. Caspian answered, and the screen showed Rory and Tavian sitting in Tavian's Portland apartment. Dad, hi, Rory said, his voice calm. How are you? Hello, guys, Caspian said, smiling. Good. And you? Tavian coughed, his face tense. Dad, we wanted to talk, he said, his voice shaking. About what happened. Caspian nodded, his fingers tightening around the phone. Speak, he said. I'm listening. Tavian looked at Rory, then at the screen. Dad, I was an idiot, he said, his eyes wet. I blamed you when you left. I thought you abandoned us. I didn't know what she did. I'm sorry. Caspian felt a lump in his throat, but remained calm. Tav, you didn't know, he said. Your mother didn't tell you right away. I don't blame you. But I should have asked you, Tavian said, his voice breaking. Instead, I yelled at you on the phone. I was on her side until she confessed. It was wrong. It's okay, Caspian said. You were protecting her. It's okay. Tavian shook his head, wiping his eyes. No, Dad, he said. I should have believed you. You were always there for us. I'm sorry I doubted you. Caspian nodded, his face softening. I forgive you, Tav, he said. You're my son. We'll get through this. Rory smiled, his hand resting on Tavian's shoulder. Dad, I want to apologize too, he said. I didn't blame you like Tav did. But I pressured you to come back. I didn't understand what you were going through. I'm sorry. Rory, you cared, Caspian said. You called, you wrote. It helped. There's nothing to apologize for. But I had to give you time, Rory said. Mum told us the truth, and I understood why you left. I'm with you, Dad. Thank you, Caspian said, his voice warm. You two are the best I have. Tavian wiped his face and looked at the screen. Dad, are you coming back? He said. Or are you staying there? I'm on Sanibel, Caspian said. It's my home now. But I'm flying to Portland in a week. We can meet. Cool, Rory said. We'll come visit you for Christmas, like we said. Sanibel sounds great. I'm waiting for you, Caspian said, smiling. Bring some warm clothes. It's hot here. Tavian laughed, his face relaxing. Dad, Mom signed the divorce papers, he said. She wrote to us. Are you okay? Caspian nodded, his eyes darkening. Yes, he said. That's what I wanted. But it's not easy. I see, Rory said. She said she quit her job. I want to start over. It's her choice, Caspian said. I wish her luck. But we're done. Tavian looked at his brother, then at Caspian. Dad, have you met someone? He said. Mom thinks you have someone. Caspian pressed his lips together, thinking of Celeste. There's a woman, he said. Celeste. We're friends, but maybe more. I'm in no hurry. Cool, Rory said, smiling. Is she good? Yes, said Caspian. Very. Bring her for Christmas, Tavian said, his voice lighter. I want to see who made you smile. We'll see, Caspian said, laughing. I love you guys. Thanks for calling. They did. We love you too, Dad, Rory said. Yes, Dad, Tavian said. Don't disappear. I won't, said Caspian. See you later. Caspian Wellwood stood barefoot on the sandy beach of Sanibel Island, his white shirt fluttering in the wind. It was the morning of September 5th, and the sun was shining over the bay where he was preparing to marry Celeste Rain. A year ago, after his divorce from Vivette, Caspian had moved to Sanibel, opened a branch of his architectural firm, and started dating Celeste. Now they stood under an arch of white flowers, surrounded by loved ones, including his sons, Tavian and Rory. Caspian looked at Celeste, her simple dress shining in the sun, and felt a peace he had not known since the night he had found Vivette with Quinn Drake. Tavian, in a light suit, straightened his tie and approached his father. Dad, are you ready? He said, smiling. You won't run away at the last moment? I won't run away, Tav, Caspian said, his voice warm. I know exactly what I'm doing. Okay, Tavian said, clapping him on the shoulder. Celeste's great. I'm happy for you. Rory, standing next to him, nodded, his eyes calm. Dad, you look happy, he said. This is cool. We're with you. Thank you, boys, Caspian said, looking at his sons. You're here, that's all I need. Celeste approached, holding a bouquet of lilies, her hair loose and a smile lighting up her face. Kaz, are you whispering to the boys? She said with a wink, making plans to escape. There is no escape, said Caspian, taking her hand. I am staying with you. Better this way, Celeste said, laughing, because I won't let you go. The waitress, an elderly woman in a white uniform, cleared her throat to get their attention. Ready? She said, opening the book. Here we go. Caspian and Celeste nodded, standing under the arch. Tavian and Rory sat on chairs next to Brecken Hartley, Caspian's partner, and some of Celeste's friends from Miami. The beach was quiet, only the waves and birds breaking the silence. Caspian and Celeste, the waitress said, her voice clear. You have gathered to join your lives. Caspian, your vows. Caspian looked at Celeste, his fingers squeezing her hand. Celeste, he said, you came into my life when I didn't know where to go. You made me laugh, talk, and live again. I promise to be with you, to support you, to love you every day. Thank you for choosing me. Celeste smiled, her eyes wet. "'Cause," she said, "you showed me that I can trust again. You're honest, you're strong, and I love you for it. I promise to be your family, your friend, and your love, always." The waitress nodded, her face softening. "Exchange rings," she said. Tavian handed Caspian a ring, and Celeste's friend, Lisa, gave her another. Caspian placed the ring on Celeste's finger, his hands steady. "With you forever," he said. Celeste put the ring on him, her fingers trembling. "And I'm with you," she said. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," said the waitress. "You may kiss." Caspian leaned down and kissed Celeste, her lips warm. Tavian and Rory clapped, Bracken whistled. Celeste laughed, pulling away. "Well, Mr. Wellwood," she said, "you're officially mine now." "And you are mine, Mrs. Wellwood," said Caspian, smiling. They walked to a table under a canopy where drinks and snacks were waiting. Tavian raised a glass of juice. "Dad, Celeste," he said, his voice loud. "I'm not a toast master, but you're awesome. Dad, you deserve to be happy. Celeste, you made it better. Here's to you." "To you," Rory said, raising his glass. Everyone drank, and Caspian hugged his sons. "Thank you," he said. "You made the day." Celeste took his hand and led him to the water. "Shall we go for a walk?" she said, "while they're eating all the cake." "Come on," said Caspian. They walked along the beach, barefoot, the waves touching their feet. Celeste looked at him. "'Cause, are you happy?" she said. "Really?" "Yes," said Caspian. "With you and the boys, I have found what I was looking for." "Good," Celeste said, squeezing his hand, "because we have a lot ahead of us." Caspian nodded, thinking about their new chapter. 3 months ago, he and Celeste had begun the adoption process. They had found an orphanage in Miami, where they had met Eli, a 5-year-old boy with dark hair and a soft voice. His mother had died, and his father had given up his rights. Caspian and Celeste had spent weeks with him, playing, talking, and had decided to become his family. The paperwork was almost ready, and Eli would be moving in with them in a month. "Eli will be here soon," Caspian said. "Are you ready to be a mother?" "Yes," Celeste said, her voice soft. "Are you ready to be a dad again?" "I've never stopped," said Caspian. "But with Eli, it's a new start." They returned to the guests, and Celeste went to dance with Lisa. Caspian sat with Tavian and Rory. "Dad, tell me about Eli," Rory said. "What's he like?" "Quiet," said Caspian. "He likes to draw. He's a little scared, but he opens up to Celeste." "Cool," Tavian said. "We'll be big brothers. It's weird, but cool." "You'll manage," Caspian said, smiling. "He'll love you." Bracken walked over holding a beer. "'Cause, congratulations," he said. "You look like you've been born again." "Thank you, Breck," said Caspian. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Nonsense," Bracken said, clapping him on the shoulder. "You pulled yourself out." And Celeste helped. Caspian nodded, looking at Celeste dancing to the music. She caught his eye and waved. He felt a warmth he had not known a year ago, when he had lived on a yacht, running from pain. "Dad, have you talked to Mom?" Tavian said, his voice cautious. Caspian shook his head, his face becoming serious. "No," he said. "She signed the divorce. That's all I need." "She's freelancing," Rory said. "Trying to start over, asking about you." "I'm glad she's okay," Caspian said. "But we're done. I have a new life." Tavian nodded, his eyes understanding. "Okay," he said. "We just wanted you to know." "Thank you," said Caspian. "Are you talking to her?" "Yeah," Rory said. "She's trying. But you and I, Dad." "It's important," Caspian said, his voice warm. "You are my family." Celeste returned, her cheeks flushed from dancing. "'Cause, let's go dancing," she said, tugging at his hand. "Don't sit with the boys all evening." "I'm coming," said Caspian, standing up. They danced to slow music, her head on his shoulder. Caspian looked out over the bay, at his sons, at his friends. He thought of the past of Vivette, of the pain, of the trial. The scars remained, but they did not define him. Celeste, Eli, Tavian, Rory, they were his present. "Cause, what are you thinking?" Celeste said, looking at him. "About us," he said. "About how I ended up here." "It worked out well, didn't it?" Celeste said, smiling. "Better than I could have dreamed," said Caspian. They kissed, and the guests clapped. Tavian whistled, and Rory laughed. Caspian hugged Celeste, feeling her warmth. "I love you," he said, his voice quiet. "And I you," said Celeste. The evening ended, and the guests left. Caspian and Celeste returned to the house holding hands. They sat on the veranda, looking at the stars. "Cause," Celeste said, "we did it. Are you happy?" "Yes," said Caspian. "With you, with Eli, with the boys, I'm here." "Good," Celeste said, resting her head on his shoulder, "because this is just the beginning." Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.